and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 4, the final part of my Moon in a Jar series, and the app that I'm using is Krita for Windows. And I'm just going to be showing you some more further misadventures in Krita. As I said, this series is mostly just kind of about discovery, because I haven't used Krita that much because it used to lag really big on my Surface Pro 3. But since I'm on my Surface Pro 5, it works fairly well. There's a little bit of a lag, but it's not enough that you can't do a big project on here. And so I wanted to go ahead and just kind of work on the stars and try to make them look a little bit better. And that's those splotches that are appearing is because I'm trying to use pinch and zoom with my fingers, and sometimes that doesn't catch the pinch and zoom right then, and it leaves a mark. So yeah, you have to watch that. And so here I'm trying to get kind of a decent look to the stars, and again I'm just kind of coloring in what I had, and decided I didn't like that it just didn't look, I guess, professional enough. Although, you know, if you're gonna do it like maybe say a kid did it, that would look okay. But I decided that I would just erase it and start over again. And this is why you work on layers, because then you can erase it and start over again without bothering the background. And if you're following along traditionally, draw in the stars first and get them right the first time, because it's a pain in the neck to try to have to go over it and match the background and all that stuff. So get the stars right the first time. Draw them in with chalk, cut out a stencil somewhere and trace over it. Something, but get them right the first time. But if you're doing this digitally, just make sure that you've got them on a separate layer. And so I'm using the eraser, the hard eraser for this. And then I'm just using one of the oil paint type brushes to paint it in. And so I decided that I had that pretty good, and then I had a brainwave, I guess you would say, or light bulb went off in my brain, and I decided, hey, why don't I use the symmetry tool, and that way I would get them, you know, the same on both sides. So I actually did that, and lo and behold, it worked. So I went back to the first one that I did and erased that out on the sides, and then just went ahead and redid that one again. And again, that's why I say do things on separate layers. Now, I don't work with a lot of layers. I like to work with 5, 6, 7 layers. Some people have hundreds of layers, and maybe that's the way you should work. It probably is, but since I work more like a traditional medium, I don't like to use a lot of layers. And so the symmetry tool actually worked pretty good for that, and so I was able to actually get the stars symmetrical then. And you can do this traditionally. You can use a piece of paper folded over and do it that way. Just do like one side and then cut it out, and it will be symmetrical on the other side too. And you can use it for a stencil and just trace it on your canvas, and that way you won't have to paint over anything. So that's what I'm doing here, is adding another star and using the symmetry tool and just kind of coloring in on it, and using one of the oil brush type presets there, and it works pretty nice. And you can see it tells you the name of the brush in the lower left hand corner there. So that's kind of a wet paint brush. It's called wet paint. You can go in and add brushes and put different names on them if you want to, and add them into different categories and make your own favorites and do all kinds of things with the brushes. It's nice that they've added a lot of customization to the brushes in Krita. That really helps. And so I decided that the stars look pretty good, and I wanted to work on the lid of the jar just a little bit, go back over it, give it a kind of a golden lid. And so I went ahead and used the wet paint brush and did some thin lines on the edge to make it look like there's a light hitting it. And if you're following traditionally, you can use your script brush to kind of give those lines there that give a texture of a jar lid, and also smudge it out with paper towel or your finger too to kind of just give it a metallic look. So that's what I was trying to do here, was give it a metallic look and the textured look that you get when the grooves are on the jar there. And so I was smoothing that out with the blender, the basic blender there, and it works pretty well to kind of give it a metallic look there. And so I just went over the top and the bottom of the jar lid, and I could have made this picture more refined and really took it out to the nth degree and really made it more complete. But this was more about using Krita than it was trying to get a finished product. I just wanted to see if I could do a big project in Krita and see what all it entailed, and if I could find the brushes that I'm used to and a lot of all these other more natural media type programs that I use, such as Infinite Painter, Corel, ArtRage, etc. And so this was kind of just a test of Krita. That's why a lot of the video is me trying to find all the tools and trying to figure it out, and that's just kind of the way you have to do. If you want to learn a program, just do a big project on it, do a big painting on it, and see if you can get it to do what you want. And so that's basically what I was trying to do here. And I did add a little bit of some highlights on the jar, and I'm using the smudge tool, the blender blur, to just kind of get a look like it's glass there. And again, as I said, I'm not taking this picture out to the nth degree and trying to get a real clear photographic style of painting. I just wanted to kind of get a general idea of what Krita could do for me. And so here I'm using the airbrush again and trying to get a little bit of a glow around the moon and the stars to make it look like it's inside the jar, and working a little bit more on the lid, trying to get it a little bit more defined there, add a little bit more details to it. And I probably will do this picture again, maybe in a different program or just with more details. I like the idea. This is kind of just a concept art for me right now, but I do want to actually do an even more refined picture with this idea, because I like the moon in the jar idea. It's kind of neat, and everybody does galaxies and moons and all kinds of things in a jar, and it just gives a kind of a neat effect and a neat fantasy look. So I probably will redo this sometime in the future, but right now I just kind of wanted to figure out what Krita could do. And so here I'm using the airbrush again to kind of get a little bit of an idea that the jar is sitting on a table. I'm using a lighter purple and lighter blues, just trying to give a indication that it is sitting on a table and putting out a little bit of some light. And so I just wanted to go ahead and kind of add a few of those details towards the end of it, and just work a little bit more on the edge right there, try to get it more symmetrical. And so here I wanted to add another picture of a jar to try to get the look of the lid there. So I went ahead and added another photo reference there, and just worked on the edge of the jar, just straightening it up a little bit, making it look a little bit more substantial and not quite as blurred out. I wanted it to have a little bit of a more detailed edge and defined edge there. And I'm using probably yellow ochre with burnt umber mixed together with some white acrylic gesso would give that tan color there. And you could use your short script brush or your long script brush to get this. And so I'm just kind of working on the edges of it, trying to give a look that the light is hitting it a little bit on the edges and give it some form and some three-dimensional look here. And again, I'm using the wet paint brush just to kind of give it a painterly look, and then add a little bit of some dark brown lines on it to make it look like the grooves in the jar. But again, as I said, I'm not making it completely detailed or realistic looking, because I just wanted to see what I could do with this program. It's not so much about the picture in this series of videos as it is just trying to kind of figure out Krita. And so I'm working a little bit with the knife edge, and it kind of gives you a nice sharp look so that you can get a certain kind of texture with the knife edge there. And so I was using it for a little bit on the edges of the jar just to give that a more glass look there too, and to kind of give it a little bit of a transparent look. So I was working on that, and working on the bottom of it, just kind of working on the edge, trying to make it look like it's sitting on a table, that you can't really see much to the table, but that it is actually sitting on something. So I used the airbrush again just to kind of give it that look and the glow around it, so that it looks like it's kind of glowing. And then you can move your photo references out of the way and just sort of step back and see what your painting looks like. You shrink it down. That's the equivalent of a step back from the canvas. When you're doing this digitally, you just shrink it down. So I was working on that a little bit, and then I wanted to work on the outer edge of the jar on the bottom just to add a little bit more light to it, make it show up just a little bit more. So I was using a little bit of light blue, and you could use your script brush to add these final details if you're following along with traditional acrylic paint. And so I'm just kind of working on that. And then I added a little bit of a shadow to the jar to settle it down, make it look like it's on a hard surface and not just floating. So I used kind of a darker purple for that, and then I was trying to smudge it out with the knife and the basic blender and some of the different blending brushes, and just trying to get kind of that glass look. So what do I think about Krita? Well, I like Krita, but it still has some lag in it. I can say that. And it's gotten a lot better, and you can do a lot more things with it. And I think you can really do some pretty big projects with it. Probably need to tinker with the brushes a little bit more. Maybe download some of other people's brushes. Just kind of experiment with them, I would say, and change them. And I think that Krita is fine for doing a full-blown professional project. And in fact, We know it is because David Ravoy always uses it for Carrot and Pepper, his web comic, or Pepper and Carrot. It's the one with the little witch and her kitty. I love that one. It's so cute. But anyway, he uses that for professional work. So this program is fine for professional work. You can do full web comics, full pictures, anything with this program. So I would definitely recommend, if you wanted to use a very good program with lots of features and you don't have a lot of money to spend on a big program, say like Adobe Photoshop or Corel Painter, I would definitely recommend just using this program because it's a really nice program. You just have to get familiar with it. Obviously, most of my problems with it were that I just wasn't familiar with it. But the way you get familiar with it is you use it. So I would recommend using it for a big project and just keep playing with it and trying to make paintings in it and just keep using it because it's a really nice program. And they always work on it every year and add more and more new features and updates with their big Kickstarter. So it's definitely a good program. So this is the end of my Moon in a Jar series. Stay tuned for a brand new series coming soon. If you want to see what that is, hit the subscribe button. Thanks everybody for your support. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions about what you would like to see next, leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.